What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. 2 days ago, Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov and Senior Commander overseeing the radiological, chemical and biological protection units was nullified, as Russian propaganda says it, right in front of his doorstep. His assistant met the creator alongside with him as well. This was the person mainly responsible for spreading the narrative of American biolaboratories on the territory of Ukraine, combat mosquitoes, berserk ninjas, and similar heresy. Looks like the invisible warriors intertwined with mosquito DNA were finally able to get him. But in all seriousness, according to the reports by the BBC and Ukrainian intelligence services (SBU, the device that eliminated him was just a deliberately parked scooter near his apartment. Nothing extraordinary for a man spreading science fiction level of propaganda. And while most of you already heard about this incident, that is not the entire purpose of this video. Instead, we will focus on the consequences and the reasons why this happened. The revelation of this total incompetence of Russian security services, who could not protect such an extremely high-ranking official, and who are also in charge for the safety of the regime as a whole. There are many ways how the rule of Putin can end or be endangered, and we always had the feeling that probably something that will question Putin's presidency will happen from the inside of the country. Could it be the beginning of something greater? Let's find out in today's video. The loud noise that woke up Moscow residents was caused by no more than 300 grams of TNT. But it instantly evoked the raw brutality associated with the Russia of the 1990s. Memories rush back of a period when violent criminal gangs and mafia groups settled scores over casino, land and markets, and when powerful figures fell victim to these events right in the broad daylight of Russia's capital, Moscow. But this time, the victim was not an ordinary gangster or controversial businessman. He was an active duty general connected to the apparatus of the war. This sudden but logical demise forced society to acknowledge that the capital's illusion of order and control can be shattered by events born of a far-reaching conflict. People no longer feel safe. It brought them back to reality that the war still goes on. Those who prefer to ignore it or thought that it will never directly affect them, since they live hundreds of kilometers away from the front line, are now suddenly realizing that it can happen to them any minute, hour or day of the week. This feeling will most likely not last long, but it will always be a constant reminder that it can happen. The bomb did not trigger in some remote region. No, it exploded in a familiar for some neighborhood, leaving residents of this particular region traumatized and thinking what could have happened if they left the house 1 minute too early or 1 minute too late. Though it may feel surreal for them, it is no coincidence that the war beyond Russia's borders has been brought back into their own homeland. We did mention in the past that the longer this war goes on, the more people will feel directly affected. And the successful attack on Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, which shook the entire neighborhood quite literally, is a direct confirmation of this statement. Not the first, not the last one. Next, let's talk about the moral consequences of this event and whether the desire for revenge is justified. But first I want to give a quick shout out to Extra once again. They did not pay me to say this, I'm doing it on my own, because I know how good their products are. At this point, most of my friends and relatives are already using their wallets, they are just that good. I wanted to mention that there are still a couple of hours left for you guys to order their wallets if you want them to arrive on time before winter holidays. And the 50% discount is still active. My personal link and code DUDE gives you additional savings. I'm sure you guys are gonna love their products. Please go ahead and check it, the link is down below. Let's continue. We were talking about whether the desire for revenge is justified. The news of a high-ranking officer's elimination presents a dilemma. Some of you might disagree with me, but just give me 2 minutes to prove my case and then see if you agree with me or not. On one hand, Igor Kirillov belonged to the commanding ranks overseeing a war that has brought hardship, death and destruction to countless Ukrainian citizens. He was not merely a desk officer, but someone closely associated with the narrative that cast Ukraine's efforts in sinister terms. In that sense, from a military perspective, He was arguably a legitimate target for those determined to halt the ongoing aggression. Yet, there is something unsettling about rejoicing in the death of a fellow human being, especially one killed in the heart of his own city. Even if he served as an integral part of Putin's war machine, celebrating his elimination on native soil makes us descend into a savage logic that embraces never-ending cycle of violence. When is it going to end? What if somebody wants to avenge him, and then somebody wants to avenge that person, and then retribution comes to the third man, and so on? The true moral stance rejects both extremes. If you think about it, there is no genuine dilemma here. The answer is pretty simple. War criminals and orchestrators of aggression should face justice through legal processes, not vigilant eliminations. The ethical line is clear. The world should see these people testifying in courts of law, not like motionless face down in snow. To accept assassination as a norm would be to surrender any aspiration of a more rational and principled world. There is a reason why eye for an eye vendetta does not work. People realized long time ago that even the most dangerous offenders should be prosecuted, jailed, and isolated from the society. Capturing them can also help prevent future similar events, since they can reveal some plans, give up their co-conspirators, and just in general help with the investigation. They should still be jailed after that, in order to become an example to those who want to do the same. No crime should ever go unpunished. No matter how much time passes, the criminals should be caught. That's the mindset that everyone who wants to break the law should have. After all, spending your life in jail, not having any hopes of redemption, it serves as a much bigger punishment for them, rather than just committing all these crimes and then taking a quick way out, whether deliberately or unknowingly. The elimination of Igor Kirillov is not a spontaneous event. Rather, it is just one more consequence in a chain set in motion by Vladimir Putin's decision to start war. Without the ongoing conflict, such scenes would have remained inconceivable. Imagine, General Lieutenant in the center of Moscow, the capital of Russia, in the broad daylight. Over the past months and years, the once unthinkable has become common and expected. Attempts on senior officers, the targeting of defense contractors, and the eliminations of propagandists who promote violence, this just became a normal part of our evening news. The domestic affairs now deal with the kind of destabilization that for many years was associated only with distant battlefields and foreign lands. The war's logic is simple and cruel. By sending troops to annihilate Ukrainian citizens, Russian leaders ensured that Ukraine's intelligence services would strike back, sometimes even within Russia's own borders. Isolating the homeland from the consequences of aggression has proved to be impossible. No matter how secure a position once seemed, every person actively supporting the conflict, from generals to those designing the military gear, now stands in somebody's crosshairs. Their status, proximity to power, and presumed invulnerability makes them even more desirable targets. And I'm not even talking about the external threats. Think about how many top business executives and military officials were either prosecuted or slept on top of high-rise buildings. They find themselves trapped between the horror of a prison cell and the terror of an early grave. None of this would be happening if the war had never begun and if they got together and resisted Putin as a group, because individually, one by one, unfortunately they never stood a chance. In this grim environment, recognizing that these killings are a part of a vicious, never-ending cycle is important. So long as the aggression persists, responsive violence will not end. Diplomatic resolutions and legal accountability are the only ways to start looking for an end, whatever it might be. Until then, each new victim is just the synonym of Putin trying to buy himself more time to try and figure out what to do next. One of the most logical elements of this elimination is what it reveals about the state's ability, or better say, inability, to prevent such acts. Russia's intelligence and security services, once revered or at least feared for their reach, appear increasingly powerless to shield key figures within their own system. The KGB was something nobody wanted to cross paths with. There are still rumors about this titanic grip that can reach whoever they wanted for whatever reason they thought fit. But now, the FSB does not even have the slightest part of this respect. Surveillance cameras can be found on pretty much every Moscow street. The FSB, what it seems, commands near limitless authority. But yet, what they decided to do with its power is to catch young adults and, yes, the children, just because they left a like under a Freedom of Russia Legion post on Instagram. Countless citizens have been arrested for similar minor dissents. Imagine, literally, in the past, the KGB was responsible to keep state secrets safe, even though the methods they use were pretty questionable. And now, the FSB monitors hundreds of social media accounts, or thousands of them, just to see what was liked, what was reposted, what was shared, and especially which comments were left under undesirable photos or videos. And most of people who end up being caught are young people with no connections and the whole future ahead of them. I can almost see it. An FSB agent comes to his office in the morning, starts watching YouTube videos that say bad things about Putin, and then he tries to trace down those people who left funny comments. What a career it is, right? But when something really dangerous happens, something like an explosion right in the middle of Russia's capital, which leads to the elimination of a very senior official, then suddenly the FSB is completely powerless. Detecting such things in advance is apparently somehow for them impossible. This attack was no amateur's work. It required careful planning and understanding of the target's habits, and the technical expertise to construct and conceal an effective such device. Such a skill set implies that experienced saboteurs operate in the very heart of the capital. They are not teenagers that the FSB got used to catch with such ease, and the entire operation took probably months to plan and execute, and not a single step along the process was ever uncovered. Despite their vast powers, Russian intelligence officials have repeatedly failed to intercept these lethal operations. Their subsequent investigations rarely yield the kind of professional perpetrators responsible for such actions. Instead, they usually uncover just the couriers who delivered the device to a specific location at a specific time, which is an extremely easy thing to do. Just look at security cameras footage and, well, that's about it. The FSB excels at show trials and theatrical crackdowns after the fact, but they struggle to bring genuine masterminds to justice. This is the paradox of the Russian security state. It is perfectly capable of catching the most insignificant figures and publicly punishing them, while not being able to prevent anything where a person exercises at least the very basic caution during the preparation stage. And these are the people responsible for the safety of the regime and Putin himself. And sure, they do much better work there, but it is not nearly enough to protect the president in case there is a major and well-thought plan to take him out. As always, in case it does happen, they will find someone to punish. They will show him on every TV channel, they will publicly humiliate him, and they will show some part of their genius investigation how they were able to catch him. Well, that's obviously assuming they will not be happy themselves, as that Putin was finally taken out of power. Maybe even with their own help. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below. Thanks so much for watching, and see you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.